it had become really important for agents to be able to select whether they are working from office or whether they are working from home. Because right now, most organizations are following a hybrid mode or fully work from home mode, where your agents, sometimes they need to come to office, sometimes they need to be working from home. Now, in order to actually maintain and monitor operations on a good level, your supervisors need to be able to see whether each agent, whether they are working from home or whether they are working from office, because they can then accordingly plan their workload. Now, previously, this your agents, when they were logging in, they could not. There was no way for the supervisor to see whether the agent is working from home or working from office. But with the new feature, it is now possible for your agent to select whether he's going to be working from office or home right on his screen. So this is what it kind of looks like when your agent is logging in. He can select whether he's working from office or working from home. Now, this information, this selection of the agent is visible to the supervisor. So on the live monitoring tab, he can see exactly which agents are working from office and which are working from home. Under working mode column, even on the chart dashboard, you can see the live monitoring of the chart dashboard. You can see which agents are working from office, which of them are working from home. And this is also available over the mobile application. So even if the agent is using the mobile application instead of the web app, he can still select whether he's working from office or working from home. And all of this information is visible to the supervisor so that he can take his decisions. Okay. Next is a feature where we have added the queue name visibility on the accept reject call pop-up, right? So basically, whenever a call arrives to an agent, if you have the auto answer turned off, right? Or if you have the auto answer turned on, then as soon as the call is routed to an agent, it will be picked up automatically and connected, right? But if you have the auto answer turned off, in that particular scenario, your agent gets a pop-up where he has the option to accept the call or reject the call. Now, while this feature is straightforward in itself, a problem was noticed where if an agent is working multiple queues at the same time, right? He's working on multiple processes at the same time or multiple brands at the same time, right? In those scenarios, your agent could just see the customer's number and he had to judge on that basis whether he wants to pick up the call or not, right? So now what we've done is we've added the queue name in the accept reject call pop-up, right? That means when your agent gets this call, he'll actually be able to see which queue the call came in from or which brand it came in from, and will be able to process it accordingly. So this is what the new accept reject pop-up looks like, where you can now see the DNIS and the queue of the customer as well. So the customer's number is 131. And so I can see that there is an incoming call from 131, which is the customer's phone number. And under call information, I can see that the customer had dialed 23658. This was the DNIS or the number that he had dialed. And the queue name is null in this particular example. But if had there been, for example, a brand one, so brand one would have appeared over here. The next feature, auto call off desktop notification for callbacks. Now, this is a feature that aims to ensure that your agents, right, they are, yeah, so they are always able to attend the customer's call, no matter how busy they are, right? Now in a contact center or, most contact centers, what happens is that the agents actually have a lot of tasks they need to complete. They don't just answer calls. They have to fill out data. They have to mark data in different systems. They might even need to, go through your repository and send documents to the customers. So they have a lot to do. They cannot be expected to remain on the, the Ameyo screen throughout the day without going anywhere else, right? They might need to open another tab on Chrome, or they might need to open Excel, or they might need to open your CRM, right? Now, these scenarios, what used to happen was, let's say as an agent, I go to my CRM. I'm no longer on the Ameyo web application, right? The Chrome browser. I open up my CRM and I'm actually working on my CRM, right? I'm engrossed completely in my work on the CRM. Now, let's just say a customer's call came, right? And while I was working, I just removed my headphones as well, right? Because I was really engrossed into it. But now a customer call came. So while he would have been hearing an auditory cue, which would have been his phone ringing, but he removed his headphones as well, right? And he's on a different screen. So he would not be able to see that a customer's call is coming, and he would probably miss that call, which is bad for the customer's experience and also bad for his own numbers, right? His own productivity. So now with this feature, what will happen is no matter what window you are on, right? So if you have opened the CRM, if you have opened Google Chrome, if you are working on Excel, or even if you are watching a video for that matter, if a call or a chat comes into Ameyo, right? So if a call is actually routed to an agent, he will get a desktop notification informing him about the callback, right? So in this particular scenario, this agent was not just receiving a call. In this particular scenario, in this particular feature, he had scheduled a callback to the customer. Now, at the time of the callback, he was working on the CRM and he did not remember to take that callback. So now the system will remind him via a desktop notification that a callback is pending and he needs to turn his auto call on. So this is what it kind of looks like, where your agent, if he's working on something else, he'll quickly get a desktop notification that tells him that your auto call is off. Please turn on to start receiving calls, right? So this particular instance is for a callback. Next up, we have brought back warm transfer. So with warm transfer, as I'm sure you all know, when an agent is transferring the call to another agent, the agent will first be able to talk to the second agent, give him a download of the case, and then finish the transfer and move out of the call. And during this entire time, the customer would be on hold, right? So the flow becomes with warm transfer enhancement for calls that let's just say I reach out to Jayati. Now Jayati understands that she's not the right agent, right? I made some wrong IVR selections, or as a customer, I did something wrong and I ended up with the wrong agent, right? Now Jayati actually needs to transfer me to Surbhi. However, normally what would happen was Jayati or she needs to transfer me to Surbhi, or she needs to transfer me to the product team for example. Now with cold transfer, previously what Jayati would have done was she would have just simply selected the queue, which would have been product, or she would have selected Surbhi as an agent and simply transferred me there. Now, at the end of this cold transfer, what would happen is I would be connected to Surbhi, and Surbhi's phone would keep on ringing. And if she is busy, her phone would be busy, right? However, all of this, Jayati is not managing. She's already out of the picture, right? As soon as he clicked on transfer, she's out of the picture. Now, this means that even after the transfer, your customer might not be able to talk to an agent. That agent might be busy and the customer just drops, or that agent might have no idea of what the customer is about, and the customer has to repeat himself in front of the agent, right? That's also not desirable. Now, with warm transfer, what will happen is it's a very simple flow. As soon as I get connected to Jayati and Jayati realizes she's the wrong agent, she will go to the product queue. She will click on transfer, go to the product queue, see which agent is available. So Surbhi is available. She'll click on Surbhi's name. I, as a customer, would immediately be put on hold. Now, Jayati and Surbhi would be able to talk. So Jayati would tell Surbhi that, okay, this is the customer, this is the issue. He landed with me. Please take it forward. And after this warm transfer is complete, right? This introduction is complete. Jayati will drop off and I will be connected, and I will be able to have an informed conversation with Surbhi, where I don't have to repeat myself as a customer. So warm transfer is available again. This is the warm transfer screen where I'm transferring to an agent, and you can see which queues the agent is logged into in the campaign. Okay. Next, the next feature is holiday and office hours handling for callbacks. Now, we've had holiday and office hours for a long time now. It works on the IVR. It works for queue overflow. So if customer calls you outside of office hours or on a holiday, you can inform him on the IVR and ask him to leave a voicemail or register for a callback. Or if a customer tries to connect to an agent outside of their working hours, he'll be routed to another agent. Right? We have had these features for some time now. Now, what we've added here for office hours is office hours handling for callbacks. So, for example, let's just say my working hours are 9 to 5, right? That's my shift. Now, I mistakenly set a callback for 6 p.m., right? Now, what would have happened normally was that at 6 p.m., the system would have tried to check whether Srajan is available or not. It would have found that Srajan is not available. It would have deferred the callback by 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever the configuration is. And since I would not log in after 5 because my shift is over, it would keep doing that till X amount of times, after which it will suddenly become a campaign level callback due to campaign expiry time, right? Which is another setting that we do via the supervisor. So ultimately, I would either end up losing the callback to some other agent because it would become a campaign level callback, or else the callback would just keep on deferring, and the system will keep on checking whether I'm available or not, and it mess up your reports as well because the report would show an attempt for each time, right? Now, what we did was we added the out of office hours logic to callbacks as well, right? So now, even for callbacks, so when you're defining the office hours, you can also define whether callbacks can be scheduled for after the office hours as well, right? So the use case being, I as an agent, if I schedule a callback for 6, then it should automatically consider that my holidays or office hours are there and handle the call accordingly. Right? So let's take a quick look at what are the things that I can do here. So, so this is the screen where, as a supervisor, I'm setting the working hours or holidays or the duration of the callbacks, and I'm also setting whether the callback restriction is applicable or not. Right? So this is where I can define my working days and my holidays. And I can also mark callback restrictions to limit callbacks. So if I set a holiday on the, let's just say, the 23rd of February, and I set callback restriction, that means no one can set a callback for 23rd of February. Now, these configurations can quickly be copied to other campaigns at one go. So you just define everything for one campaign and copy it to others, right? You don't have to do it individually for each and every campaign. You can also set the working hours for each day, like you could earlier, right? For Monday, you could define the start time and the end time. You can still do that. But apart from that, you can also now configure for each day, allow callbacks at all times. So whether your callbacks will only happen during office hours or can also be attempted after office hours is something that you can control over here for each day of the week individually. And of course, you can also create multiple working hours plans for each day. Like, again, this is something that you could previously do as well. So this feature basically allows you to limit callbacks, what times these can be scheduled, and how they're handled outside of office hours. Moving on to the next feature, this is end call privilege for agents. Now, recently, we had been getting a lot of requests where, which were basically that the agent should not be able to end the call, right? He should not be able to click on the end button to end the call. Now, the use cases were various. So the first one was, of course, the agent's integrity, because agents, in order to sometimes control their average call time, right, or increase the number of calls that they're handling, they might just cut the customer's call. For example, Jayati, the agent, is talking to me, this Rajan, but I'm being very difficult or very dumb, right? I'm not understanding the basic concepts. I keep her engaged on a call for a long period of time. So she's not able to resolve the call, and neither is it a productive call. I just do not understand what she's saying. I'm unable to understand it as a customer. Now, what JT will suddenly feel is that, okay, this call is useless for me. I cannot resolve this, and it will also exceed my maximum talk time, right? The average talk time that has been recommended. So what JT can do is she can just cut the call. She does not care about the customer, right? She just cuts the call and some other call will come to him. Now, that particular customer is someone else's headache, right? However, with this feature now, JT will not be able to cut the call, and the customer will stay connected to JT till the customer cuts the call. So The power to end the call, we are putting it completely in the hands of the customer or the system. The agent cannot decide that he wants to end the call now. So he has to stay connected to the customer till the time the customer is on call. Now, now Ameyo had already always laid importance to the fact that it should always be the customer who ends the call, never the agent. That is why on the call history and even on the monitoring tables, you could see whether it was the customer who ended the call or the agent who ended the call. Now, with this feature, you will be able to ensure that only the agents that you allow are able to end the call. So this end call privilege is a feature that can be deployed on every agent, right? So you can, for example, let's just say Srajan and Jayati are both agents. You can say that Srajan has the ability to end the call, but Jayati should not be able to end the call. So you can define this feature for each and every agent, or you can do it for all the agents at one single go. So this is where end call privilege is allowed. So you can see the end button is highlighted in red. I can click on it to end the call. But when it is blocked, it is grayed out and I cannot end the call, right? So an end call option is disabled. Please contact administrator for any changes. So I'll be unable to end the call at all. And this is where I set it. So, so these two screenshots, right? So you can see the username changes. This user is super, this user is VK super. And under system mask privileges, I have the end call allowed option. So this VK super is not allowed to end the call. And super is actually allowed to end the call. Okay. Next up are some enhancements that we have done for integration. Now, these enhancements either enable a certain kind of integration or improve upon an existing integration. So the very first is UI-less integration or server-to-server integration. Now, what is happening over here is that there are a lot of standardized CRMs, the popular CRMs out there that now offer a standard method for integration, integrating with them, for telephony. For example, Zoho provides the Zoho phone bridge. So using the Zoho phone bridge, Ameyo can actually integrate with Zoho, enable all the telephony features without using the Ameyo toolbar, right? Because when even with the Ameyo toolbar, your CRM has certain prerequisites it must meet, right? One, it should give me an iframe within which I can place this toolbar. Two, it should be able to consume JS events so that if whenever the agent clicks on a button in the toolbar, the CRM can understand it and execute that action, right? So there are certain prerequisites that the CRM must meet. However, with the UI-less integration, it's a completely back-end integration, right? So basically the concept being that instead of client-to-client integration, this becomes a server-to-server integration. Wherein the client-to-client integration, the toolbar UI is provided by Ameyo, but here in server-to-server, the toolbar UI is provided by the CRM itself, right? So for this, Ameyo will expose its webhooks to CRM, and the CRM can call these webhooks to execute these actions. Now this whole concept is implemented inside Ameyo using a CRM connector app. So this is a new kind of app that we have, CRM connector app. Now, when I say CRM connector app, it's not a mobile application, it's not a standalone application, but a mini application that resides within Ameyo, just like your self-monitoring app or your pick call app, right? So just like that, CRM connector app is also there. Now let me take you through the screens. So for example, what we have done here is we have created a Zoho CRM connector using channel addition framework. So channel addition framework, just to give you a history, a brief background, channel addition framework has been around for some time now, but it has been productized in this release, and you can actually add different channels using the channel addition framework, right? So you can add custom channels. Now, using the CAF itself, we can also add the CRM connector. So you can see Zoho CRM connector. Now, once you have created this app, you can also define in which queues right? In your contact center, this app will be visible. So for example, the Zoho CRM connector app, or sorry, in this particular case, the bulk operation app is going to be available in which process, which campaign, and which queue inside those campaigns, right? So I can make that selection for each and every individual queue as well. And then once I've done that, I can also configure the users that will be using this app. So inside this Zoho CRM connector app, there are two functions. One is click to dial, one is call controls. So for each and every individual agent, right, I can control, see what I can see. I can see their Ameyo user ID. I can see their Zoho user ID. So even if the agent names are different or user IDs are different in the two systems, I can map them and make it work, right? Previously, you had limitation where the names had to be the same. Then for each and every individual agent, I can control whether click to dial is available or not, or whether call controls are available or not. So call controls would be confer, transfer, end call, etc. And click to dial is clicking on the number and initiating a call. So I can assign these privileges. If I select click to call and click on enable, then this will become available. Right. So over here, what I'm doing is using a CRM connector app, I can now easily onboard these UI-less integrations with some of the standard CRMs out there. And as I'm sure you saw, using the UI itself, I can very easily select what are the campaigns in the queues in which this connector will be applicable. And I can even control on the agent level that even within this connector, there would be different functions. So which agent has access to which functions, right? So whether Srajan as an agent has ability to click to dial or not, and whether he can, transfer, confer the call or not. Now add this, now on top of this, you can also add, of course, the end call privilege option. So our next feature for the day is WFM real-time integration with NICE. So WFM basically stands for workforce management. And this can be very important, especially in large contact centers where there are hundreds of agents. And it would be a huge task, a humongous task to actually manage those agents manually, right? So creating the work schedules, creating the rosters, making sure that the agents are coming on time and leaving when their shift is done. They are not taking longer breaks. They are working at least these many hours, right? So a lot of management needs to be done just to manage the agents roster as well. And then, of course, you also need to be able to predict that how many agents I'm going to need tomorrow or in the next week based on the call volumes. Because again, call volumes are also very dynamic in nature. There's no such thing as a standard call volume. It will keep on changing. Different cycles based on the quarter, the end of the quarter, you might have a lot more calls, or at end of the month, or some cycle will be there. Now, doing all of this manually, though possible in Ameyo initially, it was of course a big task, a tedious task. I would have to fetch the reports, I would have to crunch the numbers, and I would have to come up with the roster. Now, NICE is a popular WFM solution out there. It has been around for a long period of time. It's a reliable solution. So what we've done is we've gone ahead and created a standard integration with NICE, right? That means we sat down with the NICE team. Our product teams talked together. They figured out what was the best way to integrate both the solutions together, and what would be the best approach, right? So we have, so based on their discussion, we have now been able to provide a real-time integration with NICE. That means as soon as the data becomes available in Ameyo, it is also sent to NICE, so that NICE can also then take real-time decisions. So again, NICE is also integrated via connector app. I apologize for the blurriness of the screenshot. So as you can see, NICE connector app. So again, this is also a connector app, just like your Zoho CRM connector app, right? You can again set it for which campaign and queue it is going to work in. And as soon as the configuration is done, you can just click on Start Managing, and the WFM part would kick in. So NICE would be able to identify agent rosters. It would be able to identify. So your normal WFM features like you have scheduling and predicting of forecasting when how many calls will I receive tomorrow, how many agents should be there to take those forecasted calls tomorrow, when they need to check in, when they need to log out, etc., etc. So all of this can now be done quite easily with the real-time integration with NICE. Now, the next feature again aims to actually make your agent's life easier. So configure CTI pop-up on same tab or new tab for toolbar. Now, this feature was created keeping in mind that, again, your agents, they actually need to perform a lot of tasks, right? They're not just speaking on the call, they're actually doing a lot of tasks. So let us say that I am an agent who's currently working on Salesforce, right? I have an object open in front of me. I'm filling out information. I'm writing long paragraphs, right? Or just marking some fields, whatever I'm doing, I'm working on Salesforce. Suddenly a call comes and my entire screen changes, right? Now, of course, even though my work is not lost, it is still stored because I'm just opening a new tab inside Salesforce. My work gets disturbed, my flow gets broken, right? Or as an agent, I might be new to Salesforce and I might end up messing my navigation and somehow lose the data. So now, with this new feature, what we can now do is that your administrator, he'll be able to set whether the CTI pop-up opens in a new tab or opens in the same tab that the agent is currently working on, right? So the current behavior is that the CTI pop-up opens in the same tab, but with this enhancement, you can now open it in a separate tab altogether so that the agent's work does not get disturbed, his flow is not broken. And of course, you can actually control this on a level where, you can control that whether this opening in a new tab, it's applicable for outbound calls, for inbound calls, or both the type of calls. You can even have a scenario where, for an outbound call, if it's triggered, your agent stays on the same tab, right? And in case of an inbound call, it opens up in a new tab. So these kinds of possibilities are also there. We also have some enhancements to the administrator's capabilities in terms of making his life easier for managing the contact center. So the first feature that we have here is SIP registration status on user interface. Now, as an administrator, my job is to make sure that the contact center operations are not hampered. If I need to make a new setting, if I need to configure a new PRI line, I need to do that. But I also need to make sure that the existing PRI lines are working, right? Now, previously, this was something that your admin had to do from some other interface, right? Not from me. But what we've gone and done here is we've added the SIP registration feature and its live status in Ameyo. What that means is, if you want to configure a SIP trunk, you can do it automatically from, so not automatically, you can do it from the Ameyo interface. You can, and also instead of going to different screens and configure it that way, you can do the entire configuration from a single screen, right? And where you can also see the status of the SIP trunk, right? So any SIP trunk that is already registered, you'll be able to see its status. Any new trunks that you register, you can also see their status once it gets done, right? So this is kind of what it would look like now, where there are two SIP trunks currently registered, and I can see that their registration is successful for both of them. So now, while creating a new SIP trunk, I don't need to go to different sections. So these all of them used to be different sections in Windows. Now this is a single screen where whether I'm creating the SIP trunk, I'm configuring it, or setting the source phone or the destination phone or all the other settings, right? All the settings from one single screen. And over here, once the SIP configuration is done, right? I can click save to check the registration status and see that status here. So previously, I would have registered it, then tried it out manually, checked it manually, and then found out that it is not registered properly. And then I would have gone back to the settings and seen what I need to change. But now, while I'm configuring it, I can just click on save, see if the registration is successful or not. If it's not successful, I can just change the settings right then and there, right? So it has become a much simpler, much shorter process to add a new SIP trunk or a line to your setup via the admin. Okay. Our next feature is saving routing test results. So again, this feature aims to make your admin's life simpler. Now, what this feature does is it enables your admin to test the routing and save that test result as well, right? So what this basically means is, especially when you combine it with the previous feature, which was SIP registration status on user interface, where I was able to add the entire SIP trunk at a single go and check its status. The next step would be, setting the routing configuration for the SIP trunk. So I can do that also very easily from the interface now itself, where this was the test case name, the call context, or the SIP line, right? So I just configure the new data SIP that I just bought. Once it's configured properly, I select the test name. I say that, okay, I want to test data SIP. I set the destination source phones, and I check the routing then and there, that whether the calls are getting successfully routed or not. So if if these can be routed successfully, that means all my configurations till now are on the mark, and this new SIP trunk that I just added is working properly and is routing the calls properly. Or if it's not working, you'll be able to see that. Or if there is some issue, it's partially working, you can even identify that with this yellow attention mark, right? So your admin from his interface only can now configure a SIP trunk to test its routing capabilities as well. Okay. Next up is skill-wise EWT, or estimated wait time. Now, Ameyo has had the estimated wait time for quite some time now, where if the caller is put on wait, right? So the caller, the customer called you up, but all your agents were busy. So based on the average handling time of a call and the number of calls that are waiting and some of the parameters, an estimated wait time was announced to the customer that it will take you roughly 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 1 hour to get connected to an agent if you stay on hold, right? That was the estimated wait time feature. We also had skill-based routing where based on the skills required for the conversation, the call would get connected to the most suitable agent. For example, if the customer selected English as the language on the IVR, then I would automatically get connected to the best English-speaking agent. If the best one is not available, then the second best, and so on and so forth, right? So this was skill-based routing. What we've done now is mix them together into a single feature, right? So, for example, I as a customer call your contact center and I select one as my preferred English as my preferred language by pressing 1. Now, I obviously need to get connected to an English-speaking agent. But let's just say all the English-speaking agents are already busy with customers. So now I would be able to listen to the estimated wait time for an English-speaking agent specifically, right? Not a generic estimated wait time for the entire campaign. So earlier I would have gotten an estimated wait time, but that wait time would have not considered English-speaking agents. That wait time would have considered all the agents, right? English and Hindi-speaking ones. So the problem would be that let's just say there are not so many Hindi calls, and for Hindi agent, I would have had to wait for 1 minute. For English, I would have had to wait for 10 minutes. The IVR would announce you need to wait for 1 minute to connect to an agent, but it would keep announcing this 1 minute time for 10 minutes because I actually need to wait for 10 minutes to speak to an English-speaking agent. However, with this feature, the IVR will now give correct announcements. So if I call and I'm waiting to connect to an English-speaking agent, the announcement would be for 10 minutes. If I'm waiting to connect to an Hindi-speaking agent, the announcement would be for 1 minute. So based on the skills, the specific skill-wise estimated wait time can now be announced to the customers, enhancing their experience And of course, ensuring that they don't complain to other customers that, you say 1 minute, but you put them on hold for half an hour. So this is where, along with the queue, you can now also see that the skill is also now a parameter. So when you have the skill monitoring tab over where you can now select the skill. You can see the skill, the queue, the number of agents, the number of agents available to take a call, how many agents are total assigned to this campaign, to this queue, how many calls are pending, and what the status of the oldest pending call. Okay. Next up, we have some enhancements that we have done towards call recording, increasing its efficiency or closing its storage. So the very first feature that we have over here is enhancement and duration selecting of VLA for SaaS. Now, this is primarily applicable for our emerge and engage customers who are using the Ameyo Voice SaaS platform, right? Now, earlier, before the VLA was available, so the VLA has gone through quite some stages in our SaaS products. Initially, it was not available. After which, it was available, but you had to reach out to your support engineer or to your account manager in order to fetch those call recordings, the archive call recordings, right? So, okay, so you have two kinds of recordings. You have your online recordings, which are there for 1 month, right? 30 days. And then you have your archive recordings, which are, compressed into MP3 and stored for a much longer duration of time, right? Maybe like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever time period you want. Now, initially, these archive call recordings were not available. Then they became available, but you still had to reach out to your support engineer or your account manager in order to get these call recordings, right? Now, with this enhancement from 4.12 onwards, you no longer need to reach out to your account manager or your support engineer. You can actually do it yourself. You can fetch these call recordings, filter them, and fetch them yourself. And basically, from our perspective, we can now control that which of the agents, which of our customers actually has the VLA or not. So if what this means is that if you have a VLA for 1 year, the other person has VLA for 2 years, and the third person does not have VLA at all. So based on your duration, so for the first customer who has it just for 1 year, you'll be able to access these archive call recordings from the UI for 1 year. The second customer who has it for 2 years, he'll be able to access these call recordings, these archive call recordings for 2 years. And the third person who did not opt for the VLA will not have archive call recordings at all, right? So based on your particular use case, you'll be able to access these call recordings. So this is what the interface would kind of look like, where you'll be able to, you have different parameters to select from, and you can fetch these call recordings and download them. Okay. So the next feature actually goes hand in hand with the previous feature, where now the duration of how long you can download these archive voice logs can also be restricted. Now, this is important because, this is a SaaS platform. That means the resources are shared between a lot of customers. And let's just say as a customer, I suddenly decide that all of the calls I've ever had in the past 5 years, I had the VLA for 5 years. Now I suddenly decide that all the calls I've ever had for the past 5 years, I just want to download them right now, right? Immediately. I don't want to do it as a bulk action or a periodic action. I want to do it immediately. Now, while there might be various reasons why I might want to do that, let's just say I click on this download button. What would happen is that the entire server would come under a lot of pressure, because now the server has to fetch the call recordings, the database logs, and everything for the past 5 years for this one single customer and give these back to him, right? So essentially, this would create a lot of pressure on the system. Now, with the restricting of the duration, I can actually define what is the maximum duration for which these call recordings can be downloaded. Now, this is currently still a backend configuration, but the engineer can configure that how long you can download these call recordings for. So as you can see, there is now a date range restricted to 3 months or 10 years option, and you can use that along with other backend configurations. So here, 3 months is available by default, right? So there is no token that it is asking for. But if the admin suddenly tries to change it to 10 years, you can see it is asking for a authorization token so that he can download recordings for 10 years. So without the help of support engineer providing this token, the customer cannot just simply change it to 10 years directly and start downloading these call recordings, even though he's not authorized. Okay. Next up is an important feature, especially from compliance perspective and from the perspective of multi-tenant architectures, where there are multiple tenants inside the same setup. Now, so for example, in a BPO, right, I have multiple processes for which I have these call recordings. Now, I need to be able to separate quite easily which process this call recording is about, right? For which of my clients this call recording is. So earlier, since there was just a standard name of the voice recording, nothing could be done. You would have had to go to the interface and download them manually based on your search results. But now what you can do is you can customize the way the nomenclature of the call recording happens. So these are some of the attributes that are available for customizing your, or for including in your call recording name. For example, the channel number, the date of the call, the time of the call, the type of call, whether it was an incoming or an outgoing number, the customer's number, and the extension to which the call was made, right? So basically the agent's extension. So all of these can now be included in the name of the voice recording. Next up is voice log error notification. So just like it's very important to name that call recording properly, it's also very important to make sure that call recording is happening in the first place, right? Now, these call recordings are required for majorly three purposes. One is quality monitoring of the agents, second is compliance, and third is legal, right? So you actually need to make sure, especially for regulatory reasons, that these call recordings are actually being generated. You cannot miss out on even a single call, right? So 100% call recording has now more or less become a regulatory need for you. Now, there are two possible scenarios where recordings fail. One, the recording does not start in the first place. Two, the recording starts, but something goes wrong and the recording cannot complete. Now, in both these cases, people need to be notified that the recordings are not happening, right? And they need to be notified immediately. So we will now have these three kinds of notifications. So of course, you have your bell notification, which is the notification that appears up on top inside the Ameyo interface, where if the call recordings are not happening, I will get a notification. I can also get a desktop notification if the supervisor or the admin is away from the interface. And then finally, I can also receive a growl notification. So growl notifications are nothing but conditional notifications. So these can be grouped together. They can come after some time, right? So instead of sending 10 notifications after every 30 seconds, what I can do is I can group those 10 notifications into a single notification and send it every 1 minute, right? So that's a growl notification. So these three kinds of notifications are not available in case voice logs are not happening, right? So this here is a bell notification, which comes from within the interface. This one here is a desktop notification. Then you also have a growl notification. So you also have an error notification for low disk space, where you would immediately get a notification in case the disk space is getting low. So in this notification, I'm sorry about that. Okay. So in this notification, you can easily see that the problem started at this time. The server, this is the server, the host, this is the server. It's an average severity issue. And the disk space used is 47 GB out of 49 GB, right? So you can also see exactly how much space has already been consumed. So you can now take preemptive actions. You can also get consolidated notifications for your app server, where you can see when the problem started again, right? So this check is done every 5 minutes. If there is a failure, it notifies the admin along with the specific reason for the failure. And because there might, to prevent too many notifications, these notifications can be consolidated. You also have VLA errors now. So in case the VLA is failing, you will also get an error for that. It will show the total count of errors, that how many calls were not archived, what was the reason of these calls not getting archived, right? So for example, for all of these calls, you can see raw copy field, right? So it was not able to fetch the raw call recording at all. Okay. Also, if the call recording is failing right now, so of course, these notifications are going to your stakeholders. However, from an agent's perspective, because I as an agent am on a call right now, right? But the call is not being recorded. So this call can be auto disconnected and the agent will get a notification that this call has been disconnected due to recording failure, right? And so that it does not happen that the agent continues the conversation with the customer and the recording does not happen and you get into a regulatory mess. So in order to prevent that, the call will be disconnected and your agent will be able to see that it has been disconnected because the call recording has not started. So as you can see, your call has been disconnected. In case of an inbound call, your call has been disconnected due to recording failure. So even the auto dialer understands this. So auto dialer will automatically turn on or off when the call recording becomes available or unavailable, respectively. Now, the last section for today is enhancement for other user roles. So so we have talked about the admin, the supervisor, and the agent, but Ameyo does have analyst, group manager, CC manager, other group user roles as well. So these enhancements apply to those roles, the not so frequently discussed roles. So in today's session, in this section, we are going to focus on the multi-CC manager. Now, for our older customers, the multi-CC manager is a replacement for the power user because the power user had certain limitations and it had to be installed on a physical machine, right? So it was not a web-based application, a web-based user, you had to install it, right? So we have now come up with the multi-CC manager, which is power user plus more features, right? So your multi-CC manager is the administrator of your multi-tenant contact center, right? So, for example, you have multiple tenants, right? Each tenant has its own administrator that creates the dispositions, that creates the agents, has its supervisors and agents, right? But the multi-CC manager sits on top of all of these administrators, right? So while your administrator is managing a particular tenant, this multi-CC manager is actually managing all the tenants and all the administrators who are managing these tenants, right? So this guy's main job is to create the administrator or other multi-CC managers, right? Now, apart from that, of course, the multi-CC manager can also act as an administrator in regard to a particular tenant. So actually, let me show you the interface because it will be simpler, right? So right now, as a multi-CC manager, I'm creating a new user, which I just give it a username and ID. And I can select which contact center. So since this is a CC manager, right, a multi-CC manager. So over here, I am basically making him the same as me. So it's not going to ask me for which tenant I am creating this user. But when I create an administrator, it will also ask me which contact center or which tenant are you creating this administrator for. Right? So when I create a multi-CC manager, because it's not limited to a single tenant, it does not ask me. But when I'm creating an administrator, because the administrator is specific to one single tenant, it's going to ask me what the tenant is going to be for which I'm creating this admin. Now, of course, as a multi-CC manager, I can also create new tenants. I can also create, so this is where the different tenants or the different CCs, right? That's why multi-CC, different contact centers are showing up. I can create them, I can edit them. I can also control the licenses that are available between different tenants, right? So let's just say I have a total of 100 licenses. I want to make sure that 50 of them are being used in this tenant, 10 in this, 20 in this, and the rest are in this. So I can actually do that. I can specify the available license distribution to each of these tenants and control it like that. So the multi-CC manager can be a very useful user where in case of multi-tenant contact centers, right? Where from this user, you can create other multi-CC managers. You can create tenant-specific administrators. You can control exactly how many users each tenant will have. And then, of course, you can also work as an administrator yourself. So I just click on switch to administrator, and then I can have access to all the admin functionalities for one particular tenant as well. And once I've done my admin work, I can just click on switch to multi-CC manager and go back to my multi-CC manager view. So since I'm a multi-CC manager, I also need to tell the system that which of the calls are to be routed to which of the tenants, right? So based on the different call context, I can define whether this call context connects to tenant 1 or whether it connects to tenant 2. So that was all for our session for today, where we have discussed the major enhancements for Ameyo Voice. Quickly taking you through them again. So the very first category is enhancement to agent capabilities, where you now have the ability for the agents to select the work mode, and this is visible to the supervisors in the live monitoring screen as well. This feature is available on web app as well as mobile application. Next feature was queue name visibility to on accept reject call pop-up, where your agent can now see the queue or the DNIS for which the call had come on the pop-up that appears where he accepts or rejects a customer call. We also have auto call off desktop notifications for callback. So in case a callback is scheduled and your auto call off is turned off, Ameyo will send you a desktop notification so that you can, come back to the Ameyo interface and turn your auto call on so that the callback can be dialed out to the customer. We also have reintroduced warm transfer, where as an agent, if I transfer call to another agent, I will quickly have a short conversation with the other agent before handing the customer over. We also have holiday and non-office hours handling for callbacks, where you can, just like you define the holiday and office hours, you can also manage callbacks automatically now. So if a customer, you can control whether callbacks can be set or not outside of working hours or on a holiday. You have end call privileges for agents, where you can now control whether the agent has the ability to end a call or not. You can now also perform a UI-less integration based with the standard CRMs for a more using the CRM connector app. And you can even control which queues this CRM connector app would be applicable in. We have also introduced WFM integration with NICE. It's a real-time integration, so all the data is passed in real time, and NICE can help you with workforce management. With configure CTI popup on the same tab or new tab, it's possible to create a setup where when the call connects to an agent, it can be opened in a new tab or it can be opened in the same tab. You can also configure under administrative capabilities, you can also configure SIP trunk from the same interface and test its routing logic and save everything. So configuration of a SIP trunk and setting the routing is now quite easy. You also now have estimated wait time announcements for each particular skill, not just the queue. All recordings have also met with certain enhancements where you can now, you can now have duration selection for VLA for the SaaS products as well. So a customer who has VLA for 1 year will be able to fetch the recordings for 1 year. A customer who has the VLA for 10 years will be able to do it for 10 years. You can also control the duration for which these recordings can be downloaded in order from the admin interface. You also now have custom nomenclature available for voice recordings. And in case there are any issues with the voice recordings due to storage being filled out or the VLA not working or the database entry not being made, you will get a notification. Then, and finally, you have the multi-CC manager role, who is basically the person who manages your multi-tenant contact center. He can create other multi-CC managers. He can create tenant-specific admins. He can define how many agents exactly can work in a single tenant, the maximum number of agents. And of course, he can also perform as an administrator by switching his working mode. So this brings us at an end to today's session on 4.12 GA release for voice. Please direct any questions that you have to Jaiti Agarwal or Srajan Kumar at Ameyo.com, and we'll try our best to answer those queries for you.